He started the church. Yes, Ben Graham is he and his wife started what is now Mountain View Baptist Church. So we are grateful for his service to the Lord. Ben is also the last living member of the original church. So of the group of people who started Mountain View Baptist Church, Ben is the last surviving member. And so this is really a historic moment for us to be able to hear firsthand from the man that God used to start this church. And Sid, we love Sid. Sid grew up playing in the church. It started in the living room of the Graham's house, and Sid grew up in the church, literally. So we're also going to hear some from Sid this morning. So anyway, well, Ben, if you could start off, could you?
Want me, let me just give them a brief overview.
Okay.
So as Dad's talking, this will kind of make sense.
Okay.
What's going on? How many of you know where El Burrito is in Clearfield? Right down on the main highway. Do you know where the Front Runner train station is in Clearfield? Okay, what else might there be? There's a Wendy's, and then you go down a little further, and there's Kmart and McDonald's in Layton, okay? Well, right there where El Burrito, the restaurant is, there's an old nursery out in front. It's a train shop now called Almost a Junction Train Shop. Well, that's Dad's nursery. And right behind that is a little red brick house. His son, my brother, lives there now, Ben. Ben's 72. He lives in that little red brick house. And that little red brick house is this little house in this picture in the middle. So when you come up afterwards, right in the middle, that's really where it all began. That little red brick house is where the first meeting, Clearfield First Southern Baptist Mission was, which later became a church. Okay? So then, right to the side of that little red brick house, Dad owned 3 building lots right there in Clearfield. And we first met in the home, and then when we outgrew that, how many of you know where North Davis Junior High is? And the Aquatic Center. You know where that is? We met in the music room of that junior high school. Of course, it was the old one. It's been rebuilt. We met there, and then in 1950, then we finally got a church sent to us from the Southern Baptist Convention. Okay, the mission board sent a little Masonite church that went together. There's pictures of it here being constructed. Okay. Anyway, you'll see. Here's a picture right here of that little church. The walls being erected by the members. So that's not really where it all began. It began in the home. Then it went to the junior high for a short time. Then this little church was constructed right in Clearfield by El Burrito. Okay. And then in 1954, we built the first part of the church. And you can come up and see pictures. That's the old church in Clearfield, which sits north of North Davis High School, up by the library. How many of you know where the library is in Clearfield? Okay. Then in 1973, this part was built on the old church. And then in 1993, this church was built. Okay. And so as Dad's talking, kind of think through that all of the roots are right in Clearfield, right in town. So with that, afterwards, come on up and look. There's old bulletins here. There's old youth rally information, old bulletins. This is the first directory that was put out 20 some odd years ago here at this church. So with that, I'll get going and then take it away. Charles, go ahead and introduce him.
All right, Ben. Well, Ben, tell us a little bit. Why did you feel called to start Mountain View? Tell us what led to you starting Mountain View Baptist Church.
Say that again, will you? I can't hear very good.
What led you to start the church that is now Mountain View?
Charles, I'm not gonna interrupt, but if he begins his story, because it's a long one, that will preface how it all began and why.
Okay.
Dad, tell your story, sir.
Okay. In Texas, where I lived, where I was born, my father was born in Texas. His birthday was August the 8th. Now keep this in mind. August the 8th, 1891. I was born 27 years later, August the 8th, 1918. Same numbers. But he had me by 27 years. I loved Texas. I went to school there. I was a good student. I could write good. I could do a lot of things that others didn't do because my father was the superintendent of schools in Taylor County, which is one of the biggest counties in the state of Utah. A lot of schools.
Texas.
He was the superintendent. And he would teach me at home. I grew up, finished my high school, started the university, Hardin Simmons University in Abilene, Texas, where my father went to school years before. And when I started to school, I really enjoyed it, and I also got me a job. And I got a job with a nursery and florist wholesale company, and they had a lot of plants, and they needed to dig some plants that you had to keep the earth on, and then put some burlap around it to hold it before you could move that. Then you take it out. Nobody could do that, but I could do it. So I got to be the leader of the nursery in that place in Abilene. I was going to school, I was doing real good, and I decided that I'd come to Utah because there was a boy whose father had a business that goes all over the U.S. And he had sent his son to Hooper, Utah to do some work. And I didn't have a lot to do in school. I didn't mind missing it a little, but it was out. And I told my friend R.M. Raymond Middleton Barrington, let's go to Utah and see Emory. And he said, okay, so, and I had a car. I went to the gas station to gas up. Did you know what happened? Gasoline almost doubled before we left. It was usually, well, I'll tell you what it cost. It jumped up to 18 cents a gallon. Can you imagine that being so high? Because it was always around 14 or 15 cents. So I told R.M., let's hitchhike. So we hitchhiked. It took 2 days. We got to Roy, and we had to go down 5 miles to Hooper. not one person would pick us up from Roy to Hooper. Yeah. And so we were track men, so we ran and walked, and we got there. And we saw a man was on a Sunday, but he's out working on his car. We asked him if he knew where the man lived that was, or that he was working for. And he said, yeah, it's 2 miles over here. So what do? Run and walk 2 more miles. And we got there. When we got there, we found him. He was inside, and we told him we'd come to see him. And he said, well, you know what? I'm going home in the morning. This job's done. We didn't get to see anything. We got on his little flatbed truck, I think it's a 1938 Ford flatbed. We rode 2 days and nights all the way back to Texas, to Abilene. And I loved this country, the mountains, I loved them, and I told RM, I said, I'm gonna go back next year. So next year, we went back and we landed in Clearfield. We had a job picking tomatoes. There were canning factories here. We picked tomatoes every day, then we'd take a bath, and we'd get in my car, I drove the car, and we'd go to the mountains and look around and do things like that. And I wasn't interested too much, but I saw a girl. I was in the bathtub. And my friend said, hey, there's some girls out there picking apples. Let's go see them. Well, he started out, and I was in the tub. It's a wash tub, it's only about that high. I jumped out of there, tried to dry myself off, and I finally got my clothes on. I grabbed a little Japanese boy's bicycle, and I wheeled around the corner to where I knew she lived. And when I got there, she was just coming in with her apples, she and her friend. I told her who I was and talked to Ben and Fern, and I said, would you go on a picnic with me? And she said, oh, I'd have to ask my mother. I said, well, would you ask her? And she nodded yes. Went in the house, and I heard her ask her mother, and her mother said, absolutely not. So I thought, well, all is over. And then her mother said, you can't go anywhere with them, but if you want to invite them in, my friend was there too, if you want to invite them in the house, you can do it, but you can't go anywhere. And I thought, well, it's all over now. But lo and behold, she came and asked us if we'd like to live in the house, or come in the house. Oh, we did. We came in the house. We got acquainted. RM played several instruments. I did too. Her mother played the piano, and when she found out she could have us play with her, she wanted us all the time. And but we could only go in the evenings. One time we were playing, and I noticed people sitting out on the lawn, a few. And we were playing one time, and a friend came in, he said, Ben, you know how many people are out there on the lawn listening to you? I said, no, I didn't look. And I opened the door and looked. And he said, there's 40 people out there. That was so funny. And man, we loved to play that after that. I fell in love with that girl. She was a wonderful, sweet girl, and she was 16 years old. And at that time, I was 19. And I tried to get her to go with me, but she wouldn't. And I asked her, before I left, I asked her if she'd marry me, and she said, oh, no. And I felt like that should be my wife. I went home, I came back the next year, 1938, and we dated. And I had vowed, don't ever ask her again. But we were sitting out on the lawn in little chairs like this, and she was sitting there, and I was sitting by her, and tears started in my eyes. They're about to now. I wanted to ask her, and yet I had vowed, don't ask her. Finally, I got up and I got on my knees and I held her hands there on the lawn. And I said, honey, I vowed never to ask you again to marry me, but I'm going to ask you one more time. And I asked her. Nothing happened. I got up. I knew it was all over. And I had her hands, and she held one hand, she wouldn't let me go. And she looked at me and smiled and said, yes. You can't imagine how I felt when that girl said yes, she would marry me. Well, I had to hurry up and get back home. And we got married at the old church building in Clearfield, recreation building, or whatever you call it. We got married there, and I never saw so many people come to marriage. And
That was
we
in
got gifts.
That was in a Mormon church.
What?
That was in a Mormon church. My mother was LDS at the time.
Yeah, this girl I married was LDS. And I wanted to get going. I had to go back to my job in Texas. So I went to the railroad station. There was one in Clearfield. It's not there now. And I asked him how I could get all these things shipped. And he came out and he brought a pallet that was stacked up about 3 feet high with boards around it. He said, you can put them in this. So I did. I put them in there. He said, it's $9. Ship anywhere in the U.S. So I paid him the $9, and we filled that up, and I couldn't get them all in. And he said, I'll tell you what, I did not get to go to your wedding, and I wanted to go. So I'll get you another pallet, just like this, put your things in it, and you don't pay me a penny. I like that. Back then, $1 was about like $5 now, maybe $6. I went home, I went to church. Fern would go with me, but she didn't want to change. That was in 1938, we were married. 1950, we came back. I told my wife I'm going to have a vacation 30 days every year. That's the way I had it at my job. I worked day and night. I worked for the government. I worked for my nursery. I had a nursery in Clearfield for 54 years, and then I said, that's enough. And I made some money, still got it. And Fern did not want the LDS people would come and try to talk me into getting going to the Mormon church, join the Mormon church. I would use the Bible with scriptures which kind of denied us to join anything because I was a Baptist. And I didn't say Baptist was the only one because there are a lot of churches. But we went on home, and in 1950 we had a vacation in Texas, and we stayed with my uncle and went all back where I went to school and everything. And then when we got ready to leave, my dad had retired and bought a place in Arkansas. We were going to go there. Well, if you get up early and go, you didn't have to spend $30 for a motel. So we told Uncle, we're going to get up early. I was getting my clothes off, a knock came on the bedroom door. I opened it, it was him. He said, you know, there's a Baptist church having a revival down here, down this street. And he wondered if we'd like to go. And I said no, and about that time Fern spoke up and said, yes, well, I'd like to go. So we went. She was over here and holding my arm, and sometimes she'd squeeze it. And I wondered, what is she doing? And they got through with the sermon, and I looked over, and she had tears in her eyes. And when they started singing the songs, she started crying and got up and pulled me up, and she went forward, and she gave her life to Jesus. But she didn't want to be baptized. She thought she'd already been baptized. We got to Arkansas, where my mother and dad were. That next Sunday we went to church, and we were singing, and I looked over and she was gone. I thought, where in the world did she go? And I looked up, way over there, she's over there talking to the pastor. And I thought, what is she doing? And she wanted to be baptized. She said, that baptism I asked, it was no good. I want to be baptized. So we went down to an old creek. There were thousands of crawfish in there, all over, big bunches of them. And she almost pulled the pastor in with his clothes on because she was wanting him to. There was a man baptized, and she was next. But we went home, and I thought, well, I want to try to start a church. We started, I went around to a lot of places, and we got a little place going, and we met in different places, and then that kind of folded up, so then we started, we went back to Texas in 1950, and that's when she was converted. And from the time she was baptized till we got home, it was, honey, let's go home and start a mission. Let's go home and start a mission. Honey, we can't start a mission, I told her. we've got no place to put people. So we started in our home. I said, it won't work, honey, it just won't work. I don't know how many times she told me, going home, let's start a mission. When we got home, let's start a mission. I finally said, okay, I'll try. And I went through Clearfield, Layton, Syracuse, a lot of different towns around there. I figured 160 homes. And I found a man, a Baptist man, had a Mormon wife, just like I did, till she was saved. And so we decided that we would try it, and we had 4 people that said they would come. And I thought, well, maybe some will, but only 4 people came. And we started the mission with 8 people, including my son, 3 of my sons. 4, no, it was 3.
Right.
And we started in our house. And then we finally got to go where he told you about the music room in the junior high. We outgrew that. And then God sent a man I know to show us how to build a building on a vacant lot that I had some vacant lots. We built that church, the men did. I didn't know anything about building. And it wasn't long till that was full. I don't know if you brought a picture of that church. Big.
Yeah, you can imagine, it wouldn't take long to fill that. Tiny.
It looks like one of those livestock things I see at like a farm.
Yeah, that's about what it was. It would have made a nice chicken coop.
But a church in Ely, Nevada started, and they needed a church, and we either gave it or sold it to them. I don't know what they did.
Right. It
But
was
anyway, that church is in Ely, Nevada.
Yeah, it was disassembled.
And we built a church. I think he's got a picture of the one we built. And I helped build, and Shorty Cure, Lawrence Cure, one of the ones that helped start the church. He got in, we were digging for the footings of the church, and he couldn't throw it when it went deep. He couldn't throw it out. And he'd throw it and it'd get all over me. And I'd tell him, don't throw it this way, throw it that way. So he got over that way and threw it and could come right back at me. And I laughed and cleaned it all off. And I buttoned everything up so I wouldn't get dirt in me. But God blessed that church. It was called, what was it called?
Clearfield First Southern Baptist.
Clearfield First Baptist Church. And we outgrew it. Couldn't hardly get any, didn't have enough seats. And it wasn't long, and even before I knew it, the building went up Mountain View Baptist up. If you go up the Hillfield Road, and you go to, there's a church on the right and one on the left.
That's where we are.
Left is Mountain View Baptist.
Yeah, where you're sitting. What a coincidence.
Now, sometimes it's so full, we need more church. I've prayed and prayed and prayed. God, help us build a church. What can we do? And you know what he has told me twice, God has? He said, "You build it, I'll fill it." That's what he said.
Yeah.
And we built this church.
Well, Dad,
I've tried to serve Jesus in this church all my life.
Dad, I know some of the youth have some questions. Charles, take it away, sir. And then after we're through, don't come on up, and if you have any questions about the pictures or anything, we got lots of memorabilia from early years of this church.
Yeah, we got a few questions for you, Ben. What was the most difficult part about starting a church?
Dad, what was the most difficult part of starting this church?
The most difficult thing of me after it was built was getting up here. I had to drive up here. I couldn't walk across the street and get in my church. But I was amazed at how fast they built this church. We had a man, a pastor, and he was helping build the church, but he wasn't our pastor, he was just helping build the church. And it wasn't long till it was built up, and it had some additions on it. Are they through with the additions now?
Yes, almost.
Almost.
You know, let me say, probably one of the most difficult parts for Dad was he was a young man. He had young children, probably, well, they were 10. They were 10, 7, and 4 at the time when he built the church, or when we first met in the home. And he had to become a pastor, a Sunday school superintendent, the secretary. And so in order to have a mission and start a mission right from scratch, you have to do everything. He was the deacon, he was the trustee, he was the usher, he was the custodian. And that's what it takes to build a work like Clearfield First Southern Baptist, is you have a lot of people that come together and don't mind getting their hands dirty. And they absolutely devoted their life and their money and their time to starting this little church in this home. And that's what God does, though. God takes our efforts, our small efforts, and builds them, and they grow into what we see here at Mountain View. People simply saying, "I surrender all to Jesus." And then Jesus will build a mighty work if you just submit and surrender. So,
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thanks, Sid. A couple students asked the question, how has the LDS community responded to the church plant throughout the years?
I can't hear very
Dad,
well.
how has the LDS community responded to our church being built here in 1950?
Well, they quit coming to me to try to get me to become a Mormon. And I don't know what all, and I didn't question my neighbors, but a lot of the places I'd go, they knew I was a Baptist, and they'd come up and kind of criticize me.
Right. This is a part where I can step in. Back in the 50s, we were very, 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 very small group. Almost everybody here, as you know, was LDS. And they didn't know who we were, what we were about. They knew they were the one true church. That's what they thought. And so anybody else coming in claiming to be a church, they just poo-pooed that, and they didn't have much to do with you. One night in this church, one night we were watching 16 millimeter films. Well, everybody had, if you had any training from the mission board, from it was in the form of a film. So naturally, we would turn the lights off at night and show the movie up on the screen. A neighbor right across the street from this church, right across the street, straight out this door, called the cops and said, "There's something really weird going on at the Baptist church here." Says the lights keep going on and off. So they were suspicious of us, very suspicious. My mother, when she accepted Christ, and I'm not bashing the LDS church, the people are wonderful. We've got lots and lots of family members that are LDS still to this day. But they don't know Christ as their Lord and Savior. And when Mother came to Christ in 1950s, the family came to her. Her uncle, who she cherished, her uncle, came to her and said, "Now, Fern, you realize that we won't be able to help you anymore." And my mother said, "Well, that's all right. I don't need your help. I need your love." So she poured it right back and witnessed as much as she could. So anyway, it was a tough challenge because they didn't want us around. It was hard getting building permits, by the way. In 1954, when we built this church right here in Clearfield, Clearfield City did not want to issue building permits. We had a hard time justifying the ability to be able to build that building right there.
The building permit was only for 18 months.
Yeah.
They knew we.
Yeah, they did everything they could to thwart our efforts. Okay, go ahead, Charles.
Ben, Sid, we're about out of time. Sid is one who grew up in the church. Do you want to share any? Do you have any stories or anything you'd like to share with us in the last few minutes we have?
Sure.
What did he say?
He asked me to share any stories I might have had about growing up in the church. I'll say this.
I have earpieces, but they're no good to listen to. I can hear him, he talks loud.
Well, yeah, as your parents get older, you'll talk louder too, you guys. If they live to be 96, you'll talk real loud. I'll tell you, as youth, I wish that I would have made myself available to serve Jesus every day, over and over and over again. You guys hear about missions, you know, the missionaries come in. Get involved, youth. Get involved and study. Study and commit your lives to the Lord, number one, but commit your lives to mission work, perhaps. Get involved with the church. You know, I like Charles bringing in the volunteering to do the the what?
Ushering.
The youth
No,
program.
thank you, that big word, ushering. Do that. I've got a piece of paper up here. You'll notice I was the Youth for Christ rally. I was the Youth for Christ music leader. I was the Youth for Christ. I was the youth rally, the associational youth rallies that you have. Guess you still have those, right? I was the music leader, and I loved it. I loved it when the area missionaries came in. When the missionaries came in and helped us build this little church, I loved those guys. They represented what I knew was wholesome and valuable. They loved Christ. They loved the Lord, and I enjoyed knowing that these people loved us enough to come help us build this little church. Everything about being involved in church, we loved. Believe me, we went to church always. I mean, can you imagine? You know, we were never not going to go to church. I wished I'd paid more attention. I wish that I had been more committed, more devoted. You're at the perfect age now to make a decision right now to sell yourself out for Jesus Christ. Give yourself to Him. You know, the Gaithers wrote a song saying, if I had it to do all over again, I'd serve Jesus every day of my life. You heard that song, any of it? If I had it to do all over again, I'd serve Jesus every day of my life. And that's, as you get older, that will be your regret. That'll be your regret if you don't serve Him, is one day it'll happen and you'll say, why? Why didn't I serve Jesus every day of my life? I had that opportunity. So youth, don't let your youth flee from you. Don't let it escape you. Make the decision today to do something for Jesus Christ with your life. And He'll never let you go. He'll never let you go. He'll love you. By the way, here's some old, these are from Baptist encampment. Excuse me, I'll spit all over myself here and then I'll talk. How many of you have Baptist camps? Youth camps? Any of you been to youth camps? Go to youth camps. You might meet your boyfriend there. You might meet your girlfriend there. Those are fun things. And there'll be friends that love Christ too. So here's, this is from 1962, 1963. These are the little programs we carried around.
Hey Sid, last question for you.
Yes.
When the church started, when you guys started First Southern Baptist Clearfield, that was the first Southern Baptist church in the whole area. Is that right?
Yes, that was the only Baptist church. We were a mission. By the way, we were sponsored off of Vernal, Utah. You know where Dinosaur Land is, right? Where the dinosaurs are. They had a little church there, a little Baptist church that had been started by the mission board and some people just like Dad. And as we became a full-fledged church, in fact, right here on this thing, this is charter members in attendance at organization of our church, April the 1st, 1951. And what the mission board does is you have to petition to become a church in the Southern Baptist Convention. Those were the members that were attending when we chartered as a Southern Baptist church in 1951. And you have to, I don't know where we were going with that question.
This being the first church.
Yeah, but we were the first church anywhere in this area. In Ogden there was an American Baptist church. Back then they called them Northern Baptist. And that was too far away. So they started this little church, and off of this little church, right here that met in that home, Roy First Southern Baptist started. Layton Hills started. We started a church in Tooele. We started a church in North Ogden. We started a church in Ogden. Calvary Baptist Church is a mission off of this church. Spanish Mission in Layton we started. So as a result of my mother coming to Christ in 1950 and her desire to have a place for her children to worship, God spread churches all over this area. That's how important your life can be if you sell out to the Lord. Can you imagine? A decision that you make, a husband you meet, a wife you meet, will make the difference of a community coming to Christ, perhaps.
So Sid, to clarify that, all those other churches, Layton Hills, Roy, all those churches were planted out of what is now Mountain View?
Yes, those churches were started with people coming right from this Clearfield First Southern Baptist Church and sending a team, a small team, to Ogden, to Roy, to Layton. There were, right in the Layton area, there were several churches started as a result of Clearfield First Southern Baptist Church, now Mountain View. So if you make yourself available, God will use you. That's what the people did. They came together, a small handful, and it grew and it grew. They loved the Lord. They made themselves available. and we put them out into these areas, and those churches blossomed, and people came to Christ.
Give your lives to Jesus first, and then everything will work for you, because you'll have Jesus helping you.
Amen.
But give your total life. Bow your heads when you can, when you want to do something, and ask God to help you. And thank Him for what He did for you. You know what's happened when you've done something real good? Who told you to do that? Was it your mom and dad? Was it God? God will guide our lives if we'll let Him. He's had to guide mine to get 96 years old.
In 4
I
years.
praise Him.
In 4 years, you'll be 100.
That's right. In 4 more years, you'll be 100, Dad.
Well, thank you so much, Ben and Sid, for sharing with us this morning.
Yeah, when you're 96, 4 years is like 4 months. That's how, it really does. The time just starts to fly.
I'll be 96 August the 10th, August the 8th.